Okay, today we are talking about self-identity. In my opinion, it's one of the most important life lessons because it affects everything. I was actually waiting to talk about this because it builds upon three other concepts that I already made videos on earlier. One of those is about the power of belief. You can see this video up here, I'll put a link somewhere, but suffice it to say, what you believe has great power. And in this video, we're taking the power of belief and we're turning it to focus on ourself, because what you believe about yourself becomes your self-identity, whether you realized it or not. First, I want to share with you how I even became aware of this. Back in 2016, I had just quit my job, sold my house, car, piano, and was starting to backpack across Europe without a specific itinerary. Let's skip all the reasons why because that will make this video too long, but it was part of my bigger plan to find a way to be my own boss. So, I was traveling in Europe with a backpack I'd got from Amazon.com, going from city to city, country to country, and one day I found myself in London. It was my first time there. And actually what I had to do was go to the Apple store to give them my iPhone to make a repair. They told me it would take 3 or 4 hours, so I decided I would go out into this city and explore a bit. After stepping outside, I realized, I don't know what time it is. I had to stop people and literally say, "Good sir, could you tell me the time of the day?" I didn't realize how much I'd gotten used to just checking my phone for the time. Not to mention not having Google Maps. I was a little worried about returning my way back to the Apple store, but since there's only one in the city, I figured it wouldn't be too big of an issue anyway. I went out exploring, and guess what I found? Some street magicians. So I watched them, and I ended up talking with them afterwards because, actually, I'm a magician too. In fact, I've got a whole other YouTube channel about that. But directly after this, I encountered two things which deepened my awareness of self-identity, though I wasn't looking for anything like that. One was a strange little shop, and the other was a free class of meditation. I'll come back to the weird shop later, but I saw this flyer outside of a building. Free meditation class. Normally I would have just walked right by something like that, but, you know, I was in my traveler mode, I was doing things I don't normally do, and I had time to kill. So I went inside there, inquired about it, and the lady told me, yeah, it's free, you just bring yourself and they're having a class tomorrow. So I came back the next day, we went in there were maybe like 8 or 10 people, we all sat down on the floor, and this woman was leading the class. Before we got to the silent meditation part, she asked us some questions. And one of the first questions she asked was, who are you? Like, how do you define who you are? And she opened it up for people to volunteer ideas. One person said, maybe your job. I said, maybe your hobbies and your passions. Other ideas were a mother, meaning who you are to your family, or a great friend, who you are to your social network. Maybe I'm a strong person, or I'm an intelligent person, or even I'm an introvert based on your behaviors. Anyway, there wasn't too much more that stood out to me from that meditation class. It was a nice experience. However, this question of self-identity, I kept thinking about that because somehow I'd never considered the idea before, and it was the start of my budding awareness of the concept of self-identity. Because you basically pick all these different things that you're like, that's who I am, that's the kind of person I am. Now, back to that weird little shop that I mentioned. I was still exploring the area and I saw a shop that said something about magic on the outside, so of course I went in there, but it turns out it wasn't magic tricks, it was more like witchy stuff and, you know, magic. So they had gems, weird necklaces, creepy stuff. But the one thing that caught my eye was actually a book. And the title of the book was F It Therapy. So they had the word, but it was kind of partially bleeped out. Of course, that title caught my attention. I picked it up, I looked at the table of contents. It seemed interesting, you know? It's kind of like my traveling. It was like letting go, planning to be unplanned. It's just saying, to heck with it. So I bought it and I thought, you know, I'll read this on the bus rides or the trains as I'm traveling in the future. Now I can't tell you the whole book, but one thing that really stuck out to me from it was this concept of prisons. They talk about different cell blocks, such as perfectionism, self-doubt, seriousness, fear, but one of them, A block, is called the story. And that's all about the story you tell yourself about who you are. And sometimes it can become a prison because you have this idea of who you are and you can't break out of that. It's like being locked in a prison of your own making, because if you believe that you're a person who does not take risks, then when that situation comes up, you probably won't. That's just who you are. The power of beliefs. You know, if you literally believed at your core that you were a serial killer tomorrow, you'd start trying to murder people. Of course, you're probably not going to believe that tomorrow. I mean, how would you jump there, right? I know that's an absurd example, but I'm just saying it to emphasize the power of beliefs, especially directed towards yourself. This leads into another topic that I made a video on. I'll put a link up here again, but the idea of voting for yourself. Like if you imagine two glass jars, yes and no. And let's say you were trying to build a habit like going to the gym. Every time you go to the gym, you're putting a vote into the yes jar. Every time you cancel, it's the no jar. So as long as over time you're getting more and more votes into the yes jar, you're getting like 80% of them here, and I touched on this briefly in the video, but now I can actually go more into it. You're establishing your self-identity. You're telling yourself, I'm a person who goes to the gym. And when you believe it, you're even more likely to do it. So you get this positive momentum. Then the third video that I already did, which is actually about self-identity as well, a link up here somewhere, is about self-affirmations. And core to self-affirmations is a principle from neurolinguistic programming that you can sort of rewire your brain based off what you repeatedly focus on. Because as they say, your brain doesn't strongly distinguish between what you experience and what you vividly think about. Like imagine you close your eyes and you start imagining your favorite food or your favorite dessert, and if you really vividly imagine it for long enough, you'll probably start salivating, or maybe your stomach will grumble. Or if you had closed your eyes and imagine yourself in a peaceful forest with bird sounds off in the distance, the temperature, the whole environment, you might find that your physical heart rate slows down. You become more relaxed. So you're essentially changing your state by choosing what you want to focus on deliberately. And of course, these self-affirmations, you're doing them every day. It's something you've planned and written down ahead of time. In a way, it's a little bit like programming ourselves like a computer. It doesn't work perfectly like that, but you can have an influence. And another thing I was thinking about the other day is our memory. You know, it's not perfect. And in fact, if you think, we remember the things better that happened more recently, and the things a long time ago, it's harder to remember. Obviously. Duh. But that also means that it's harder to remember some of the great things we've accomplished way in the past. So that's what I like to do for part of my self-affirmations, is I have a list of all of the good things that I've accomplished that I was proud of. And if you're feeling it all down, you read through that whole thing at once, it's like, boom, you get an injection of energy and confidence. And all you're doing is refreshing your memory about something that happened a long time ago. All right, I can see this is gonna be a long video. One thing I have to mention is what my university professor said. I took an intro to psychology class. He said, if you don't remember anything else for this entire course, just remember the principle of fake it till you make it. He said, imagine that you're a shy person and you'd rather be a confident person. So start just pretending, just acting like you're a confident person, even if you don't believe it at first. Just see how confident people act and start to act that way. And after days, weeks, months, because you're doing the actions of a confident person, and you see yourself doing those actions, slowly your self-identity changes and morphs, and you literally become a confident person. And of course, there are other things that can lead to confidence, like actually making real accomplishments. But you know, fake it till you make it, and you'll get there eventually. Okay, just because I feel like someone's going to argue with me on that point, what if you wanted to be a more kind person? So you start acting like a kind person, and eventually you become a kind person by doing kind things. All right, I have one other point to make, and then I'll share with you a couple quick personal examples. The one point to realize is that big life changes can be disruptive. For example, losing a loved one. Now that's going to be stressful. Imagine part of your self-identity is based on that other person, and that's suddenly removed. Then part of you is missing, and you have to start to reconstruct who you are partially, because sometimes we see ourselves in how we relate to other people, in other people's eyes. Or if you're changing jobs or moving to a new city, those could be disruptive, maybe kind of neutral, could be good or bad. You know, I used to be a software developer, and now I'm not anymore, so that was a little funny for me. I still consider myself like 2% software developer. Or if you start learning a new skill or hobby, that can be an empowering change that changes your self-identity. Now you're like, I'm an engineer, and I'm a painter, and I'm a runner. And you have this kind of like combined self-identity of these different parts. So think about that when you're selecting new hobbies you want to try, because it might become part of your self-identity. And also be aware of other people who are going through big life changes, that they may be a little disrupted during that time. Okay, now for my quick 2 personal examples. Number 1, Channel Master. I spent 2 years preparing to launch this channel and then finally did it. But during that 2-year period, I felt terrible. You know, people would ask me, how's the Channel Master thing going? Do you have a launch date yet? And I'm repeatedly like, oh, I'm still working on it. For a while, my identity became this person who was just continually kind of procrastinating and never quite arriving at the thing they said they were gonna do. I felt ashamed of myself. You know, I had this pretty successful magic channel before, even got that silver play button from it over there, and I'd had this identity that I was also a YouTuber. But I hadn't published videos in quite a while, and I was starting to feel like, am I a YouTuber? Can you be one if you don't upload videos anymore? So when I finally launched Channel Master, I felt much better that I'm active, that I'm moving forward. It's less important that it actually be successful compared to me actually starting and doing it. Although I'd like it to be successful too. So you see how my actions were influencing my self-identity. Second personal example is this 30-day challenge I'm doing now, this 30 life lessons channel. I saw before how slow I was going on the first channel, so on this one, I really wanted to kick my own butt. I felt like I needed it psychologically to be a person who publishes so often, even every single day. And I know that the actions you take repeatedly start to affect your self-identity. So yeah, here on, what day is it? 28? I feel like filming videos and uploading them to YouTube is just natural to me. I've done it so many times in recent history. Maybe this 30 Life Lessons channel will never take off, but still I consider this an incredibly valuable use of time, repairing my self-identity as well as developing my skills in the YouTube arena even further. So the life lesson takeaways in summary. 2 things. Number 1, awareness of the concept of self-identity. Many people are not even aware that you have internally constructed this self-identity about who you are. And that influences what you attempt, avoid, excuse, repeat, and expect from yourself. And number 2, realizing that you can choose or even shape your self-identity. You can do something about it. And this is done most strongly through actively focusing on who you want to become and who you are becoming, self-affirmations, and the repeated actions you take, because action gives your mind real evidence to believe. And share this video with your friend who hasn't even considered yet who they really are. See you tomorrow for the next life lesson.